A play outlining the amazing life of the Reverend Henry Duncan, acknowledged founder of the worldwide savings bank movement, is being staged in the very kirk where he preached, at Ruthwell, midway between Annan and Dumfries. The costumed play, featuring actors and musicians, is the work of Argyll-based writer, producer and academic Dave Dewar, and is being performed by his Cultural Connections Theatre Company. He hopes the play, being brought to the region as part of Dumfries and Galloway Arts Festival, will raise the profile of Duncan, whom he considers an unsung giant of Scottish history. The clergyman, who lived between 1774 and 1846, had numerous other interests and achievements. They included being a social reformer, writer, and the founder of newspapers, including the Dumfries Courier. He was an accomplished geologist, and significantly, he was the restorer of the historic Ruthwell Cross, which now has pride of place inside the kirk. Dave Dewar has been at Ruthwell Kirk, savouring the atmosphere and making the final preparations for the play.
So how did you become interested in Henry Duncan?
Well, my wife and I were on holiday and we're staying locally at the Bank End, nice B&B there, and we saw the sign for the Savings Bank Museum, and I thought, doesn't sound very interesting, but we thought we'd give it a try. And an hour later when we came out, my wife turned to me and said, I know what your next play is going to be about, because the Savings Bank Museum is largely about the story of the Reverend Henry Duncan, and it's a fascinating story, and it's not very well known in Scotland. I mean, he was an incredible individual. He came to Ruthwell in 1799, and he thought it was going to be a fairly easy job. There's a lot of spiritual apathy in the village. But he found there was tremendous economic suffering, so he thought, well, I better do my bit and help them. So he was very generous. He brought corn from Liverpool at a cheap price and sold it at cost price, actually, to his parishioners. And he gave all sorts of philanthropic help to Ruthwell village. And he was much loved. But then he felt, he should do something a bit more permanent, and he thought of the idea of a Ruthwell savings bank. Now, the problem at banks at that time is if you wanted to open an account with one of the major established banks, you had to have £10. Now, that was just out with the ability of most poor people. So rather than Duncan hitting an idea, he said, well, you can open an account with sixpence. And the villagers thought, that's fantastic. And you will get 4% interest. And if you don't touch your savings for 3 years, you'll get 5% interest. So that's how the Ruthwell Savings Bank started. And very quickly the savings bank mushroomed all over Scotland and England and abroad, including America and Australia. So the idea of a savings bank was tremendous. And it all started in this little village in Ruthwell. And today it's the Savings Bank Museum. And it's marvellous. He also restored this incredible cross here at Ruthwell. He got help with a local mason, a Mr. Cromley, I believe, and they restored it. It was lying in bits in the church and bits outside, and I believe it took 21 years to restore the cross. And it's probably the best example of a Celtic Christian cross in Europe. It's 8th century. But as well as that, he did different things. As a newspaper owner, he started at Dumfries and Galloway Courier. He was a publisher, he wrote a novel. He was really an incredible man and much loved in the village. Unfortunately, things went pretty amiss in the Church of Scotland. A lot of ministers became increasingly unhappy about the fact that the local landowner would choose the church minister, called patronage. In this case, it was the Earl of Mansfield. And that's how Duncan had got his position, through the Earl of Mansfield. But as the years went by, more and more ministers in the Church of Scotland reacted against this and said it's not right. And it eventually ended up in 1843, where in this called a disruption, one-third of Church of Scotland ministers walked out of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, marched to another part of Edinburgh, and started the Free Church of Scotland. And this was quite difficult for Duncan, because he lost his lovely manse, he lost his stipend, and he lost his church. But, not to be deterred, he started to build a free church and manse at Mount Keira, which is only 7 miles from here. And unfortunately he died, I believe, before the church in Manse was created. But, he was very hopeful about that. He was sorry to leave the Church of Scotland, but it had to happen. So the story of Henry Duncan is terrific, and it needs to be better known.
Are you surprised it has never been dramatised before?
Yes, I'm surprised. But the trouble is, in Scotland we have a lot of heroes that people don't know enough about, and I don't think we maybe teach in the schools enough about Scottish heroes. Yes, I'm surprised it hasn't been dramatised.
Is he an unsung local hero?
Oh, an unsung, absolutely. An absolutely unsung local hero.
And what do you feel about holding the drama in Henry Duncan's kirk here at Ruthwell?
I wasn't sure if the Reverend Gerald Moe would give me permission, and I was overjoyed when he said, of course. He's been enthusiastic from day one. Yes, I'm thrilled to be having it in Henry Duncan's church, particularly to be having it staged in front of the Ruthwell Cross. Yes, it's a great honour, in fact, to be staging this, the premiere, the world premiere in Ruthwell Church.
And where will this play go from here? Huh?
It goes from here to the Cat Strand, the Arts Centre, the lovely Arts Centre in New Galloway. And the following week we're doing a performance in Ellen Village Hall near Dunoon, which is where I live, and in Ayr. So we're doing 4 performances in all.
And if you could sum up Henry Duncan in 2 sentences, what would it be?
A man of many parts and beloved and loved by all.